All right, guys, thank you so much indeed for taking the time to join us. Hope you all had a great bank holiday weekend. I just wanted to very quickly introduce. Today is Tuesday, the 6th of May, and we are joined by Anthony Symington, a member of the fifth generation of the Symingtons family, who make a range of wines, including Graham's Port, which is our port partner across Hotel de Van. And I will hand over to Ant, who's going to give us the session today on Simpson Family Wines with a focus, as we know, on sustainability and the efforts that they're doing in terms of sustainability and adapting to climate change. So, Ant, mate, I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Rich. Great to be here. Nice to see some familiar faces. Aaron, you seem to be here multiple times, so that's obviously very keen. Um, it's no, it's great to be here. You know, we've worked together with you guys for several years now, and I don't think this is the first one of these we've done. So, having a sustainable slant, is a great topic. I've got a few slides which will just give an overview of us as a business and why I think a lot of companies nowadays talk about sustainability, and it's there's a lot of greenwash out there, and there are a lot who do really genuinely good stuff, like all the other people presenting to you this month, and there's some that unfortunately use it as a way to sell bottles, but actually, if you look into it, they're not actually doing that much. Um, we're quite open about like the fact we're not perfect, but we're trying to lead by example and get there and help everybody else get there too. Um, and it's a key pillar to what we are as a business. You'll see when I go through the Douro Valley, we're farming. I mean, winemaking sounds glamorous, but ultimately we're farming. We grow a crop that we're lucky enough with a bit of skill to be able to turn into wines. And we're farming on the edge of where agriculture is possible. Nothing else grows in the Douro apart from vines because it's so hot and dry. So it really is a way of life for us. If they talk about the global point of no return being 2 degrees warmer. We're already 2.3 degrees warmer in the Douro than we were 30 years ago. So we're having to implement as many things as possible to be sustainable, but also mitigate the effects of climate change just to be able to continue to make wine. Anyway, I'll share my screen. Feel free to interrupt at any point, ask questions, and then at the end, I'll close it. And we can have a chat if there's anything of interest to you guys. Um, just 2 secs. So brief overview on Symington and our sustainability um, program. So hopefully that all is showing for you guys. So who are we? We're a Portuguese English family who've been making wine in the Douro Valley for a couple of hundred years. All started in the late 1880s when a young Scottish guy, aged 18, left Glasgow because there was a recession there, and he got on a boat. He couldn't find a job, and his family couldn't afford to support him. He got on a boat, and luckily for us, got off in the city of Porto, where he started as a cellar hand, working the barrels, moving barrels around in at Graham's. Eventually rose up, became partner, and the rest is history. And I am now the fifth generation of our family to be involved. Hopefully not the last. You don't want to be the one that fucks it up. Um, but we're still very much a family business. This motley crew here are the members who currently work, although Johnny in the middle has just retired, lying down. The rest of us all work together. You've got far left Rupert, who's currently chairman, or over to the far right, Charles, my cousin, who's our head winemaker. And we're all responsible for different things in the business, from marketing to winemaking to sales, for example, in and amongst the rest of our colleagues. So it's truly a passion for all of us, that we all share. We are lucky enough to be responsible and make some of the best port brands, including Graham's, which you guys know, which is the most awarded port brand of the last 30 years. So it's not, I think every winemaker will tell you that their wines are the best. Luckily for us, the critics also do that for us. So it's not just me telling you that, it's everybody else. whilst we're predominantly based in the Douro Valley in northern Portugal, we were always on the lookout for something interesting, exciting beyond the Douro. And in 2017, actually, a rival winemaker rang us up and suggested we come and look at this property called Quinta da Fonte Soto, which you guys have the Floral wines on your list, which is in the highlands in the Alentejo, so directly inland from Lisbon on the Spanish border. And we went there, and it had to be something pretty special to tempt us to make our first moves there. And we thought, wow, this place really does have something and the capacity to make not only great reds, but also amazing whites. And so we jumped at the chance. And gee, Hotel du Vin were one of the first to get involved and support the project, which is really good. So you guys are sort of like pioneers in that and expanding the sort of relationship of the British consumer with Portuguese wines beyond just the traditional heartlands of the Douro, etc. And more recently, just included because it's a bit closer to home, but we partnered with Berry Brothers and Rudd from, the fine wine merchants in London to buy Hambledon Vineyard in southern England in Hampshire, which is really exciting because obviously for our English roots to have something back in the UK and hopefully build this historic brand. I say historic in British terms because it was planted in is the oldest commercial vineyard in England, and build it over well, help to take it to the next level. This all sort of forms part of our mission. Like, what is the difference between a family business and an NGO, say, is that we are able to look um, much more longer term. It's not just about delivering returns for shareholders next year, it's reinvesting for the longer term. You'll sort of see yourselves as custodians trying to help the next term, not just for Graham's port, for example, but also for the long term of the region itself. As I mentioned before, sustainability is key for us. It's not just greenwash or a way to sell bottles. Don't bother reading too much on the slides because it'll distract. But obviously, you have three pillars, which is one, to reduce your carbon emissions and try and adapt to climate change and support the actual environment. The other is like technical innovations, and we do a lot of work in the wineries and production. Actually, we don't patent anything. All the R&D we make publicly available so that anyone else can also implement the findings we have. And then the third bit, which people often forget about, is people. When you talk about sustainability, everyone often thinks about the environment, and you forget about people. So not only is it for our colleagues, but also the communities in the Douro with whom and amongst whom we've grown up and live our whole lives. So one of the things we do is each year donate either an ambulance or a fire engine, depending on what is needed most, to a village a remote village in the middle of nowhere in the Douro. So those ambulances are obviously used for 999 emergencies, but also beyond that, often these communities are so remote that they need an ambulance just to take old people for their monthly checkups with a doctor. They can't get there otherwise, so it's like a lifeline to these villages. um, and we try and do things that actually impact rather than just donating to faceless charities. We have sort of 10 goals that if you look on our website, we have a yearly update of how we're getting there. Like I said at the beginning, we're not perfect. We're not trying to pretend that we're perfect. In fact, we highlight all the areas that um, we need improvement of. So for example, number three goal, a 35% reduction in CO2 emissions, which we have just achieved. But a lot of companies would say, oh, we're just going to go carbon neutral. But actually, is that really achievable? You've got to do things that are achievable, and it has to be ambitious, but lead by example. So it's everything from reducing carbon emissions, energy efficiency, water efficiency, key in a very dry area like the Douro, and minimize our impact as much as we can on the region in which we farm. So transitioning to renewable energy is obviously key. We're lucky that it's very sunny in the Douro Valley, so we have a lot of solar panels on all of our winery roofs. Um, our vehicles all have to be hybrid or electric going forward, which is part of it. And we're part of an energy share community with our neighbors and friends, where if we ever generate excess, we give it to them for free. Which is again just a nice thing to do if you can. When you come to carbon emissions, as a wine producer, for a large part of the year, our carbon emissions are pretty low. Um, you could even say that sometimes we're carbon positive if we're not running our wineries and things because we have, acres and acres of vineyards which are all absorbing some CO2 from the air. So our main time of emission is during the harvest. The byproduct, as you guys all know, of making wine is you turn the sugar in the fruit into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So we try and capture the carbon dioxide emitted during fermentation, use it to turn into nitrogen to correct the soil levels and calcium carbonate. Um, then the other area, so this is why I think it's really important when someone talks about sustainability, you can't just look at yourselves, but you have to look at your impact on the world. So as I just said, our main source of CO2 emissions is during the harvest. The rest of the year, we're not really creating anything beyond running the lights and the printers and things in our offices. But we're directly responsible for quite a lot because wine is shipped in glass bottles, and glass is a huge source of carbon. Basically, to make a glass bottle, you're melting sand, turning it into glass. So it's that, and then they're shipping it from our cellar to you in your hotels. Those two things, glass manufacturing and the shipping, although we could claim that actually they're not part of us, we include them in our total CO2 count. And so we're trying to work really closely with our glass manufacturers and then the shipping companies that we work with to reduce it. I get onto it a bit in a minute. I'll come back to this bit afterwards because it's not relevant right now to what I'm saying. As I was saying, yeah, we're looking at lightening our bottles. You'll notice this year, uh, probably from the summer onwards, that the Graham's tawny bottles that you get are considerably lighter than the ones you've got at the moment. All of the wines have already been lightweighted, so we've reduced the weight by about 50%. We use all natural corks and cardboard, etc. And try and engage with the big glass manufacturers, which is easier said than done because these are multi-billion pound businesses that often don't particularly care. Um, to put it lightly, I know you're recording this, please don't send it to them. Um, we I had a meeting with them last year and they very proudly told us that they had solar panels. And I said, God, how does that work? Because you're melting glass at several thousand degrees. And they said, "Oh yes, no, it's just for our office to run on. We're still using gas to melt the sand." Um, but you have to work, you have to embrace what you can and work with them. And actually, it is working. And by sharing our findings and collaborating with a lot of other wine producers, we have managed to persuade a lot of these guys to think about it more seriously. And we've reduced the impact considerably over the last few years. So we save about 90 grams of glass per bottle, which works out about 700 tons of CO2 avoided per year, which is quite a lot. Um, as I said before, it's all very well saying this unless you are certified and people can actually believe what you're saying. So Portugal launched a sustainable wine growing certificate a couple of years ago. We were the first producer to be certified, um, which was lovely. And also, we importantly are a B Corp. So when we embarked seriously on this sustainability drive, we thought about what is the best way to be accredited. And we thought the B Corp is the best one. I'm sure you know there are lots and lots of really impressive B Corps around the world. Everyone from Patagonia, the fleece company, to Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Us, we are the first winery in Portugal to become one. The great thing about B Corp is you get audited by an external agency across every area of your business, um, and they score it, and you have to hit a minimum score to be accepted into being a B Corp. And then they come back every 2 years and check again, and you have to have improved. If you haven't improved in those 2 years, they kick you out. So it's not just a great put the sticker on your website and say we've got there. You have to keep working, keep improving. So it's a really highly regarded certification and shows that you are actually doing something for good. And it's great to see that in the UK there's more and more awareness of this. I think even companies like WH Smith and Waitrose have B Corp weeks or months where they have like aisles of their shops that just focus on B Corp aisles, which always helps because when we first became a B Corp, to be totally honest, I had to explain to every other person in the world what it was, whereas nowadays a lot of them do actually understand it. And this year, 2025, we are the drinks business, the industry publication in the UK, the Green Company of the Year, which again is a nice one. This is all based around our brand new winery, which is in the back of this picture, Quinta do Ataíde, which is the most sustainable winery in Europe at this moment. It's one of five in the world. Um, and it's actually an architectural certification, not a winemaking certification. Um, Probably until next harvest when somebody else opens a new winery and we get pipped down to second. But that's not the point of it. The point is to try and lead by example and innovate. And we're fortunate that we can invest in R&D and look at everything from the way our pumping works in the winery to different grape clones that are more resistant to drought, etc. All of that work we do, like I said before, we make publicly available so other farmers around the world can implement the same changes as us. It's not about like one-upmanship. Great, we've found this clone that is particularly drought resistant, and we're going to keep it to ourselves and, have 2 or 3 years more successful than the people around us. I think that is very unsustainable way of doing it. And we're all in it together in really. So it's trying to help people. And we have a group of different wine producers around the world where we have the same experiments going on because everyone has slightly different climates, rainfalls, etc. And then we share the data so we can have better learnings. They have some in France, some in South America, Jackson family, who I think you also work with in the US. Torbeck in Australia. The Torres family, I'm not sure if you have those wines, but Miguel Torres is one of the sort of leading lights. He was one of the first people who promoted sustainable viticulture, and everyone thought he was a weirdo hippie at the time. And now the EU has commissioned him to advise on rewriting their sustainable farming rules. So it's funny how things turn around. Um, so that is an overview. I didn't want to go into too much detail because I'm aware that just looking at slides and hearing someone talk, a lot of it can wash over you. So I wanted to give you guys an overview, an introduction into what we do, and and then if there are any questions or if you want to hear any more details or more in depth about any of it, feel free to ask. But basically, the reasons for doing it is protecting, our way of life, the farming, the viticulture, whilst trying to also improve the quality of the wines we make. Um, so it's not about mass farming, it's about like lower yields, lower quantities, but making sure that every single berry that grows on that vine is the best quality it possibly can be, so that the wine that you guys are serving to your customers is as good as anything else. Like I always say, it doesn't matter how good your sustainable credentials are or your marketing is, if the liquid in the bottle doesn't stand up to it, you don't have any legs to stand on. So that always has to be number one, and the others should be pillars to help you get there.
I'll open the floor to any questions, but I suppose one question for me is, you had a slide in the deck around adapting to climate change without necessarily going back to the slide, but what are the kind of top things that Symington's family estates are doing in terms of adapting to climate change, or what's the need?
It's a really good question. So, the Douro Valley, a couple of you have been there, is incredibly dry. Like we're lucky if we get 500 millimeters of rain a year. Hard to envisage that, but 500 milliliters is basically a pint. If you think about a pint of beer that you serve or buy in a pub, um, that's not very much water for us to get in a whole year, 12 months. Like think about your garden. That would probably all die within a month if that was all you watered it. So our vines are really struggling. So one of the things that we're doing is we've done a lot of research into irrigation. Irrigation isn't just watering. That doesn't really work because it evaporates, and also it's really expensive because there's not a lot of water. So it's drip irrigating. So we bury pipes in the ground. It's an expensive investment, but it's for the long term, as I said. And then you drip individual drops of water at 4 o'clock in the morning in the hottest period, so June, July, August. The vine's basically like a child, I guess, is that they're a bit lazy, and if you water them too much, they get used to being watered, and then they stop putting their roots down into the soil to look for the deeper moisture content. A bit like a child, if you always give it sweets, it stops wanting to have its normal dinner. Um, so we do that. We fly a drone, like this where technology can help as well. So we fly drones over the vineyards like once a month and take infrared photographs where you get this multicolored heat map and you can see the individual moisture content down in the soil, and then you do the drip irrigation per vine, not per vineyard. So you're just doing minute amounts of water to stop the vine shutting down, allow it to carry on. Um, we through this research have become like the global leaders in irrigation in drought conditions. Our head of viticulture lectures at UC Davis in California. He just presented at the Bordeaux Symposium a couple of weeks ago. So that's one of the things we're doing. Other one is, as I mentioned before, looking at different grape clones, how they can react to different conditions. A great variety that's very popular in the Douro Valley, Touriga Nacional, probably the hero grape of the Douro, makes the best vintage ports, the best wines as well, has just been legalized in Bordeaux for its drought resistance. So actually interesting, the French are actually helping us for once by almost like legitimizing a Portuguese grape. And the other one is, okay, it is really hot, but it is also mountainous. It's the largest area of mountain vineyard in the world, and we can go up the hills. So increasingly we're planting higher up where it's a bit cooler and fresher.
Brilliant, thanks. Can I open the floor to any other questions? Normally Marcus will step in at this point, but any questions from anyone on the chat? No? Okay, well,
David.
look, sorry,
I
I can hear someone saying
got
something.
a question.
Oh, there's,
Yeah, quickly, if that's.
Yeah, of course.
Can you hear me? Good.
we can now, yeah. No, we can't.
Oh, hi, Alex. It's Marcus at Avon Gorge in Bristol. Question.
Marcus, if you can hear me, do you want to just pop that question on the chat?
One of the things talking about, it looks like it's quite hot in England because you guys are all in t-shirts mainly. Port always associated with winter months, or often associated with winter months in the UK. But actually, in the Douro, when it's 35 degrees after lunch, there's almost nothing nicer than a chilled glass of tawny port, just to take the edge and the heat off the day. I think Damien and Richard, whilst you guys were all working hard last year, the HDV exec team were all sunning themselves in the Douro Valley, and probably agree that a couple of chilled glasses of tawny were much enjoyed after lunch.
I have no idea what you mean. It was all hard work. And Marcus doesn't seem to be able to hasn't rejoined the call. So we will, unless there's any other questions, we will end the call there. But from my perspective, a big thank you to Ant for taking his time to talk to us today. And also just to share that obviously as this week was Bank Holiday Week, there is another session tomorrow from Rioja with Sierra Cantabria producer who make our buy the bottle Rioja across Hotel de Van. So hopefully see a lot of you guys join us for the call tomorrow at 3 o'clock. But once again, big thank you to Ant for taking his time, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thanks for giving me your time. I hope you found
Thank
it
you.
useful
Thank
and
you. See you
interesting.
later.
Thanks. Bye,
Cheers,
guys.
mate. See you later.